Well, dude, the early tree stands I hunted out of, 90% of them I built out of 2x4s.
Yeah.
Right. I didn't have I had one climbing tree stand that I used pretty infrequently. The tree stand I used for my dad, he made out of a stop sign, cut a stop sign down, which is probably not legal, but and made a tree stand out of a freaking stop sign. Like that's what was.
The HUNTR Podcast is brought to you by Deer Grow.
Man, it's almost food plot season, Jared, and Deer Grow is one of those products that has really changed the way that we plant food plots and the success we've seen from them.
No doubt. I've been, trying to plant food plots my entire, whitetail hunting career, which is a little shorter than yours. But the minute that I started, or that I realized that I could get Deer Grow back into some of these remote plots where I couldn't get lime or fertilizer, especially in the 50-pound bag, format, so everything was changed. I could get into these spots moving forward with a backpack sprayer, and that's since escalated to these 40 or 60 gallon sprayers, and we're doing upwards of 5 to 10 acre food plots just with Deer Grow and having phenomenal success.
Yeah, and I mean with the price of fertilizer, lime, diesel, everything this year, I mean what better way to get in there and grow a successful food plot at about a third of the cost? Check out Deer Grow at deergrow.com. And we're back. Episode 77 of the HUNTR Podcast.
Oh yeah, it is.
So we won't keep you waiting. It's just us today. Just us. Yeah. We've kind of gone through this little binge of management and conservation, and I think some really cool and important topics that we've talked about. But I
feel like it needs a break too.
Yeah,
there's a lot of unanswered questions, or what's the word? Maybe I think some it can be frustrating to know that there's not a straight answer, for all of these
There isn't, man. Well, and kudos to you guys listening. I mean, some of you guys have actually commented some really cool stuff. I mean, we start talking about either, I don't know what you can call it, quality controlled content out there. Like, who's right, who's wrong, what's opinions, how's that opinion apply to me? A lot of discussions to be had on that. And then even when we get in the conservation and management aspect, there's a lot of things that I think we can all relate to. There's a lot of things that some of us can relate to and some of us never even thought of before. But ultimately, the reason we kind of have this podcast is that, we just kind of want discussions to happen, whether we can relate to them or not, just have them happen, put them out there.
Yeah. And it's not a coincidence that I think there's kind of some unanswered questions, definitely with the conservation side of things. But you and I have been talking a lot about the state of the industry and media. And, ultimately I think there's not any less hunters or any less, passion for it, but it just seems to have been diffused, out of the platforms that we're familiar with, into places that, is just fragmented, and so it feels
super
like
fragmented.
Yeah, feels like whether it's the industry or it's just like hunting content or whatever it is. It's easy to feel. I feel like where is it? What?
Well, and that's kind of where and I'm older than you, so I've eclipsed more of the season of life than you have. But dude, I remember. Growing up in my early teens and stuff, I would say that I didn't even pay attention to brands. Brands weren't even a thing when I was a teenager, which was not, 20 years ago.
You paid attention to personalities.
A little bit.
And the brands clung to personalities.
The only personalities that we had at that time from a hunting standpoint were
Bone Collector.
Bill Jordan
Jury.
and Jackie Bushman.
Oh, you're going way back.
Waddell was a cameraman for Bill at the time.
Dude, who was the guy with the mullet? A lot of Alaskan stuff going on.
Jim Shockey?
No. He was kind of heavy.
Roger Ragland?
No, he was good too.
Babe Winkleman?
No, not Babe.
Wow.
He was real clean shaven, like baby's bottom face.
McMillan
River Adventures.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And again, that stuff was after. Not
really?
that long after.
Raglan was your time.
Yeah, but you didn't hear about those guys. In fact, that's when I started to hear about the Wenzels and stuff, because
yeah.
You would just hear
Riders, Winky.
Yeah, Winky from a rider standpoint, and but there weren't like you weren't brand driven. Like I don't remember being super brand loyal to a tree stand company or to a camo or to even a bow at that time. Like I shot High Country, then I shot Hoyt, then I went to.
You're talking teens, like
Bear.
your teens?
Yeah, in my teens, 20 years ago. And so,
which I mean, dude, a lot of guys will probably say was like the peak of interest in bow hunting. But I think it was still very, call it brand agnostic, right? People didn't latch on to brands. Yeah. Fast forward that to today, dude, we all sit in cliques in pockets of brands. Well,
there's
what?
The Sitka guys, there's the Kuiu guys, there's the Mossy Oak guys.
I feel like it's because that in that time, it was still so hard to kill a mature buck.
Yeah.
That like all people were focused on is how. Like can we do this? Like do I get in a tree? Like how do I?
For sure. Well, dude, the early tree stands I hunted out of, 90% of them I built out of 2x4s.
Yeah.
Right. I didn't have I had one climbing tree stand that I used pretty infrequently. The tree stand I used for my dad, he made out of a stop sign, cut a stop sign down, which is probably not legal, but and made a tree stand out of a freaking stop sign. Like that's what I'm saying is like I've got and it's so cool. And at some point we'll have to bring this in. I've got early videos of like up at my camp in the 90s of guys using a climber, and this is when you only had a bottom section, right? There was no top section, so you bear hug the tree. And you
only a bottom section.
And you pull it up, and dude, it like how quiet we try to be. Mm-hmm. It's like,
yeah,
like as you're climbing up the tree. But that's what you did. That was your portable tree stand.
Yeah,
and it had this big iron, triangle on the back. Like that's how it dug in. There was no flexible cords and shit like that. And so, but you think about that segment, and hunting kind of was hunting at that point. And I think you're right. To what you were saying is that people were just trying to figure out the how. Like they were so consumed with the how.
Well, they didn't have time to worry about what they were doing it with. They're just like, how can I get this done? And so few people were doing it.
There was probably just as many people shooting recurves and stuff as there were compound bows at that time.
Yeah, well, because the compounds weren't much better than the recurves probably at that time.
No, it was just recent evolutions.
And so in that respect, it's it's fun to like, have banter between brands, or like it's nice to have options, but I think it was probably more pure back then in the sense that like they didn't have time to worry about like what was the new thing or what was, it was just care. Like, man, how, they were just looking to guys that were like able to pull it off because there were so few of them.
Yeah. I mean, I probably look like a mismatched Walmart catalog, with the different camos that I was wearing, whatever it was.
Yeah. The deer that were getting killed at that time, followed a similar progression, and like,
for sure,
in the same way, they weren't worried about the brand. It's just like how to do it. They weren't even necessarily killing big deer. They were just killing deer, a buck, especially here in Pennsylvania. It was like that 100%. Was the thing. My dad's age group of guys in their 50s now, and my uncle especially, when they were your age, from 30. Yeah, when my uncle was your age, like my uncle's kind of who I look to as like that age class. He'll tell me, he's like, man, there were so few guys killing deer every year that the guys that like were looked up to, and I think he was one of them,
were
killing bucks every year. 3-year-old 130 plus inch bucks. Those were like the man.
Yeah, that was a trophy. I mean, dude, I can remember plenty of times like, one of the first bucks I ever saw my dad kill with a bow. I was across the field. And he shoots this like 6.5-year-old just gnarly buck right behind PT High School.
Yeah.
And I mean, giant. And we'd seen him in the summertime. Yeah.
Do you have a picture? Can you get one?
Yeah.
I'd love to see that.
Yeah. And
text Mama Bear.
Yeah. Just cool. Like it had a big 4 on one side and just a big gnarly.
Does he have that mounted?
I don't think so.
We should try to find that rack.
Oh, I know where it's at. Yeah. But like I remember him shooting that, and it was cool because that was when I joked about it before. My dad shoots a wooden compound bow, shooting with fingers, double X75s. Shoots this deer, and
cigarettes still burning on the
tree. And we go back to grandma's house, and we're drinking coffee or whatever, and we come back and we start tracking that deer, and it like ran right to the pond. It was the first deer I found, like went right to the water and like died right in the water. We had to get it out with the backhoe basically.
Yeah.
But that was. I mean, a 6.5-year-old buck in 2001, 2002, probably time frame when he shot that, maybe even earlier than that. Like it was You didn't hear about that in Pennsylvania.
Yeah.
You know, and he killed several bucks that were probably 3-year-old bucks, you know, and I'm out there slinging at the first 4-point that I see. You know, but it just, you didn't see bucks of any caliber that you saw them, but you weren't going to wait out for them, right? You were shooting the first kind of legal bucks that you saw.
That was, you know, we've been talking recently here about like this QDMA movement. That's what I think really pioneered.
That was in the early 2000s. So that when I was into high school, because I shot
I don't even know. Did people at that time think about the age of a deer?
No.
Was that even a concept?
The only concept was when QDMA came around and the Game Commission changed the antler point restrictions. We knew that we were killing, you know, 75+% of our bucks were 1-year-old.
You knew that
in the state per the state. That's what they would tell us.
All right.
And so the goal of antler restrictions were to get more bucks to the 2-year-old age class. That's what they had. You know,
lofty goal for us Pennsylvanians.
Well, and in retrospect, you know, it also made the highest quality 1-year-olds the most vulnerable. But
sure,
you know, put that past us.
That's not a perfect system.
You know, but that said, I mean, there were plenty of years of we just tried to kill a buck. I mean, that's how you were successful. I mean, that's when you drove up and down, you know, streets and saw bucks hanging out on the pole and stuff. Like, frankly, you don't see that anymore. You know, it doesn't exist. But I think to your point, it's
right there.
Yeah, on the pole. Yeah, I think to your point though, they don't. We weren't brand committed to anything like across the board. Like, I mean, it's crazy to think about it because of how brand oriented we are now. You know, and I'm not saying that's a complete bad thing, but like back then, it was just whatever. Like, to be honest, whatever my dad used is pretty much what I fell in the suit with. You know, if my dad shot Muzzy broadheads, you know, back in the day, then I shot Muzzy broadheads. If he shot Thunderheads, I shot Thunderheads. Like, that's just how it was.
What am I thinking? I saw somebody wear it. I saw Regina George wearing camo pants and flip flops, so I wear camo.
Exactly. Yeah.
You're right. Well, and I wonder if that the conversation makes me curious about the state of branding in general. Mm-hmm. Like, you know, Ford, Chevy, you know, that's an obvious one. But
and I think that kind of brand loyalty has been around since the test of time. You know, I mean, I can remember, you know, my grandpap was a Ford guy, thus my dad.
What else though during that time? Was it like?
I mean, sports teams would be the other one.
Yeah, but I don't know if that's quite the same though. Well, I guess what I'm asking is like, is this an evolution?
Coke versus Pepsi? I don't know.
Yeah, was that? Yeah, for sure. I mean, I guess
Redman versus Levi Garrett.
I don't even know.
Side chew, you know.
Skull
versus Copenhagen.
Yeah,
I mean,
yeah.
There's preferences there. Yeah. The brand thing is what is unique.
There's just like a lot more of it. Like it seems like the outdoor industry really like what's the word? Like exploited? No, like
exploited sounds harsh.
Really assigned a brand value to each individual component like this. Mm-hmm. It's like, dude, we're just bow hunting, but within bow hunting, it's like you've got a broadhead brand, an arrow brand, a fletching brand, a lighted knock brand, a bow brand. Like literally every single thing is like you're trying to assign, and that's why you hear guys out there like, oh, I'm out here in my real tree camo with my, you know, whatever, my Danner boots with my whatever it is, you know, they're running down through the full list. It's like they have to make sure.
That's what I was gonna say. I mean, you run into a guy at the gym who's a bow hunter. First thing you ask him, what kind of bow you shoot?
Yeah, 100%.
I mean, that's just
usually
the natural.
I can tell by just looking at him.
Yeah,
I don't ask anymore. I just guess.
But that's the natural, you know, progression. Is like, oh, that's a Hoyt guy. That's a Matthews guy. That's a elite guy. Whatever.
Yeah. And
I think that's what's so interesting about this industry is that, you know, we talk about united as hunters and stuff. We're super fragmented, like just cracked all over the place. And I don't think it's necessarily like causing big divisions in there, but like there are certain brand affiliations that make you feel like you have to not associate with other brand affiliations.
Well, dude, it's an interesting conversation because like I think fragmentation amongst hunters in one respect is very healthy. Like I think there's a lot of different reasons that people hunt.
100%.
It's not like a sport or something where it's like, hey, the goal is get the ball in the hoop.
Yep.
There's different ways to do it. Stuff. It's like, hey, this is a wild animal. You know what I mean? And they live in a variety of habitats, and like there's a variety of legal ways to hunt them, and there's different reasons that people do it.
Yep.
You can do it because it's big. It's something because it's like a family tradition. It's because it provides meat. There should be a wide diversity of like why people hunt. I said that's super healthy.
Yeah.
But in regards to like, and it's a shame that like this is the case, but like in regards to protecting ourselves from, and I say like all hunters from like, I don't know what's the word, like legal, people that don't want hunting to happen. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? In order for us to like continue to have innovation of products and to be able to have the legal right, like we have to be on the same page in that regard. Yeah. And so it's kind of a weird thing to where it's like, yeah, you know what I'm saying?
Oh, yeah. Well, I think what's interesting about it is like, let's take the apparel side because we don't really have a dog in that fight. If you think of something like a kuyu, right? Kuyu was developed specifically for like backcountry
ram hunts.
Yeah, I mean
sheep hunts,
like hard backcountry. I need to have good clothing and I need to be able to move in it. It needs to keep me dry.
Yeah,
it's got
their logo is literally a picture of a ram. It's high country.
And Sitka was kind of the same way. Now both of those brands are very much marketing to the whitetail community.
Sitka was too.
Mm-hmm.
Really?
Mm-hmm.
I can't really recall the origin, but
yeah, and I mean it was more of that upper 1%er type hunter.
Yeah.
Which typically coincides with, backcountry expensive hunts, sheep hunts, things like that.
I would say Sitka, at least to my recollection, had a little bit more focus on the lower 48.
And take that in a contrast, and this is still probably 5-10 years ago, you had Scent Blocker and Scent Lock, who were very much whitetail. That they
you remember that.
I mean, that was the whitetail. I mean, because you had Realtree and Mossy Oak licensing through those guys. So that was like your apparel.
That's all it was. It was like Scent Blocker and Scent Lock.
Yeah, and then you've got like things like Nomad that have come out since that.
It was before Scent Blocker and Scent Lock. Scent Blocker was a big one.
I mean, dude, when I was growing up, I had some Carhartt Realtree stuff because those guys had a long time relationship. But hell, most of my stuff was either Russell Athletic, which would have been Mossy Oaks. That's who made Mossy Oaks clothing.
Okay.
Or whoever made Realtree stuff that I bought at like
some people made their
Walmart
own stuff
or
too.
Bass Pro.
Remember ASAT camo? Did they have their own line?
I assume they did.
Yeah.
I don't know. Predator's been around for a long time too.
Predator has, yeah. So like Scent Blocker's probably like the first notable that we can recall anyways.
Yep. And Scent Lock. Those two guys. That was the whitetail market. Now look at it where you've got Kuyu, you've got Sitka, you've got First Light.
Nomad.
You've got Nomad. Scent Lock's still there. Scent Blocker's now been absorbed. Element. Yeah, think of these brands that you now have in there, of which if you took a pool of 100 whitetail guys sitting in a room, right, it's going to be very divided amongst that group. And the question would be, for what reason? Is it apparel quality? Is it pattern? Is it
I'm sure it's
brand affinity?
Yeah, I'm sure it's a variety.
Because I say that in that, we've worn Predator in the past few seasons, and I like their apparel, but I love their pattern.
Yeah, me too.
That's one of the reasons that I wear Predator. That said, I think probably Kuyu and Sitka make better clothing than Predator does. But I'm not necessarily as keen on the patterns. I'm not saying they don't work. It's just for my personal preference.
Right.
I kind of like that other pattern.
Right.
So, I think a pattern affinity is kind of a big dividing factor amongst those. And now, at one point in time, it was Mossy Oak's pattern and Realtree's pattern. Now, Kuyu's got a pattern, Sitka's got a pattern, First Light's got a pattern. Everybody's got their own pattern. It doesn't even matter anymore.
Yeah.
And so
that happened not too long ago.
So that broke this mold. But if you're listening to this, you're one of those guys. You can put yourself in one of those categories. You're probably not the guy saying, well, I kind of just wear whatever I have. You have one of those. You fall into one of those groups. And it's a good question to ask why. And I think in the same sense, you probably critique some people. I know I do, of it's that Matthews guy. because to your point at the gym, like I can just tell he's a Matthews guy. I just know it by looking at him.
Yeah.
Or I'm like, that's a Hoyt guy. Like I just know it by looking at him.
Yeah.
And I'm not saying it's a bad categorization of stuff, but it's a weird thing when we start to identify within the community this brand affinity fragment, because it has nothing to do with hunting.
I mean, I don't think it's weird. That's the same thing you're talking about with Chevy and Ford. I mean, they're all trucks, but there's guys that are ride or die this one.
There's a personal preference.
It's good. One. It's good for the market, I think, and ultimately for the consumer to have options. Like, I'm glad that there's lots of camo companies. It spurs competition, and ultimately there are a few of them that stand out. Same with the bow companies. It's no surprise that
there's
Matthews and Hoyt, are
at the top,
have been for a long time.
Yeah,
and without their PSEs and Bears and Primes and these guys innovating, and catching up
and forcing them to continue to innovate themselves. Yeah, and I don't think it's a bad thing. It's just it's interesting when you think back, because even you're what, 29? So you think back 15 years ago, you were 14, right? I don't think there probably was much brand affinity for you back then.
Shooting at Matthews.
You were shooting at Matthews?
Yeah.
What, you remember what camo you were wearing?
Mossy Oak.
Yeah?
Yeah, I had a Mossy Oak, like, zip-up, pull-over deal. Had it for a long time.
Yeah.
It's great. Corey wears it now.
Yeah. That's funny. That's really
he wears the stuff I was wearing when I was 14.
Yeah. It's
actually, I got him some Predator this past year.
You're right. Like, and I think, like, I can vividly remember some of the apparel and stuff. I
had some. Because at the time that was like the Matthews solo cam days, so I can remember feeling like that was cool. I wasn't necessarily tied to the. I was like, my dad picked me up some camo at Gander Mountain and brought it home, and I was 100%. Like, I guess this. He bought it for that elk hunt.
I had a bunch of camo from Gander Mountain at the time. Wow. Their guide series and stuff.
I can remember the day that my dad brought this big garbage bag home full of camo for our elk hunt, and it was like, here you go, here's your camo.
Yeah.
And it was that like pullover Mossy Oak stuff.
Yeah, it's interesting when you think back to it. Like I can still remember tree stands and stuff. Like I've used muddy and big game for a long time.
Well, dude, I told you about that like one of the first tree stands I came across in the woods, and I climbed it.
Yeah.
I was like, because my buddies and I used to build forts. We just build forts as we were kids. And I found this. It was one of those old, V style tree stands with the canvas seat that flopped down. And as I was like, that's a tree stand. I know what that is. I've heard of these, And
I've seen these before.
So I climbed up into it, and I sit down on the base of the platform, and I'm like, I don't understand it. I'm like, how is this roof supposed to keep me? There's the seat. I had no idea. I thought it was like go over your head.
Yeah.
But that was the first tree stand I ever climbed.
That's funny. Yeah, I mean, like I said,
it was Dwayne Cherma's.
I built most of my tree stands out of the gate, before I started like actually getting like hang-ons and stuff like that.
I never did that. Well,
I wouldn't even think of that. Like, and as crazy it seems, like, no joke. Like, I remember buying, it may have been big games, like $29.99 hang-on stands.
Oh yeah.
And I don't think you could find one now for under $50.
Yeah. And that wasn't too long ago. I mean, a couple of years
10
ago,
years.
you can still get them. Yeah.
Yeah, it's just kind of a weird way that the industry has kind of infused itself into the community. And again, I'm not saying it's a bad thing, but the branding, and this kind of goes back to maybe the how do you influence a large population? So like if we take a look at our whitetail hunting group, there's 10 million of us out there, right? How do you influence that? I think the best way to influence it is through the brands, because that's as the content becomes more fragmented across the landscape, and everybody kind of just bounces to things that they're looking for, which is what we hear. The one thing that kind of has still taken its toll is that there's a brand affinity for certain categories to hunters. For instance, Hoyt and Matthews probably influence 70% of the bow population? 60% of the bow population?
Yeah, maybe 60, yeah.
That's a large chunk of the population that those two brands directly
that would be
influence.
Compound bow hunters.
Yep, correct. And probably more fragmented when you go to broadheads and arrows and apparel.
Yeah, more options, more fragmentation.
But, it goes back to the discussion of like, how do we continue to get good quality information into the hands of hunters? Well, it's through the brands.
Why though? Like it doesn't seem like it should be. I mean, yeah, like You're just talking about direct marketing efforts.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I agree.
Direct touches, what people are engaged with. Because, like, yeah, there's still people that we watch on a consistent basis, whether it's YouTube or whatever, but we also search for very specific things, North Dakota mule deer, whatever it is. So, I mean, we're bouncing over how many different content creators where we're still affiliated with probably X brands, and that's it.
For sure. I mean, all of the guys that are, all the brands, I should say, that are seem to be doing well. You know, first of all, you know, most of them are probably exclusively direct to consumer, and have invested a considerable amount into their, you know, direct to consumer marketing.
Yeah.
And that includes content creation, you know, aligning themselves with partners, content partners with online followings. You know, First Light's done a fantastic job. Or Meat Eater?
Well, Meat Eater and First Light
brand that owns that.
Yeah.
Yeah, that whole entity is a good example of that. You know, this Dialed Archery is this bow site we're going to try this year. You know, and those guys have a marketing background, content marketing background, and they've done a phenomenal job. It's like they haven't even built a site yet, you know, to sell to the public. And I know that they're like sold out of pre-orders.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think
because of that. So.
That's where you start to see these brand successes. And you know, it'll be neat to see how people or how brands kind of come into the market like that, because, you know, historically, if you didn't have a big budget, you didn't penetrate the market. That's just how it was, you know, or it just took a lot of time to penetrate the market. Now, I think it gives more opportunity for people to essentially see content being produced by these groups and, you know, potentially say, like a Dowd Archery, like, hey, this could be a great site. Meanwhile, there isn't a site on the market from them yet. That I don't think you had that 10 years ago.
Yeah, man, it's a weird fit. Like, you know, just the way that it seems like the human attention span is going, the way that
super short. Yeah,
well, and the way that social media is, like, it, as much as, like, you know, I say that I don't like social media or whatever. Yeah. Inevitably, almost every single person is spending at least like an hour scrolling through.
Yeah, I mean, if you got I know my iPhone sends me a report, whatever, every Sunday.
Yeah, that
basically says
there's a ridiculous amount of time that we spend looking at social media content online.
Yep,
and it's just, it seems like hunting and like the outdoor lifestyle is just kind of like a mismatch for that type of content consumption.
Yeah, and I think that
because it happens so quick, like
it does.
Like I'm totally guessing at this point, but I think like 70 or 80% of the content that we consume from things like Instagram or TikTok are
15 seconds.
Well, they're 15 seconds, and they're intentional. They're designed for that. It's
100%.
It's a specific soundbite that somebody's doing a specific activity to, and we all jump on it to watch it over and over and over again.
And then you flip to the next one, and it's just a
different person doing the same thing.
Yep.
You know, and so it seems like there's way more content than there is, but it's like way less original than ever 100%. Before. And like, so our capacity to find, but even to sit through and watch, like, I mean, dude, even when I do find a good hunt on YouTube or something, it's like, yeah, fast forward to the kill.
100%. Yeah, I'm sitting there, tap, 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 and then I'm finally like, all right, I'll watch this part.
Yeah, or the encounter. Yeah.
Yeah, and I mean, and I think that's where, you know, it's making it, I guess I say that in kind of a brand lead up, is that I think these brands are going to slowly but surely lose their grip on their click, essentially, because, you know, as just the entire playing field becomes more and more diluted with more fragmented content, ultimately the click that was very impactful on you is watered down. Mm-hmm. That doesn't mean that you still won't shoot Hoyt or you still won't wear Sitka or whatever it is, but I think that you feel like you're getting less content from that brand, though they may not be putting out any less. It's just the platforms are super saturated.
Yeah.
So you just don't see it.
Yeah.
You know, and I mean, that was back in 10, 15 years ago when Facebook was really cranking. You put in a post out as a brand, and it went to all of your followers, or at least 80% of them. Now it might hit 2% on an organic post.
Yeah. Well, and I don't know, dude. Like, I'm curious what your engagement is. Like, if I'm on, Instagram is like what I jump on, if anything. And I'll say I mean, it's less than 15% of my stuff that I'm looking at is hunting related. I don't know if it's 15%.
20, maybe.
But and it's just not the same. It's like, okay, maybe there's pictures of a buck or pictures of a shed antler, or like there's cool things I come across, but like usually it's just like
sports,
funny
people.
Stuff. Yeah, just mindless entertainment.
Random things, yes.
And so it's like any time that I'm spending consuming media isn't even...
Yeah,
because back in the day, I would have been like TV, hunting channel, and that's it. I would have just watched the hunting channel.
Yeah. Now it's just there's so many media outlets to just consume content that, again, I think that we're such a small voice in that platform anymore, and so effectively we may not put out less content. We may be putting out more content, but you just don't see it because it's just buried.
Yeah.
In a sea of
and dude, I know we talked about, whatever it is, Waypoint or outdoor, like there's television channels and stuff. Dude, they just can't compete with like the dopamine rush that something like Instagram or TikTok gives you. You're locked in.
Yeah.
And people will sit there. We've all felt the pull. Like I'll sit there for 3-4 hours and you just scroll. I don't do that, because I'm conscious of it, but I know that happens. And so
100%.
And I'm sure there's study. We could probably, Nick, if you want to pull up study.
Yeah.
Well, everybody welcome Nick to the podcast. Nick is going to be working with us on producing the podcast. And see if you can find something there. But I'm curious, like I'm sure there's been studies done about like the brain's effects to or reaction to consuming that type of quick, immediate content. Mm-hmm. And dude, it just can't be competed with.
It's a self-satisfaction is what it is. You get it, you're immediately engaged with it, and you can turn it off whenever you want.
Well, and exactly. So now that we're at that point, what I'm saying is hunting isn't that. It's hard. It's a struggle. Mm-hmm. And that's what makes it ultimately so satisfying when you're successful with it. But it's a mismatch, and my lack of hunting content consumption on those platforms tells me that that's the case.
Yeah, and I mean, if I want to watch something longer, I go to YouTube. But even that, I'm bypass. Okay, watch this, and I'm done. Out, next one.
Yeah,
that's just how it is. And so I guess it sets up to ask the question of like, even this podcast, which obviously is on multiple platforms. I mean, if you're listening to this on like a Spotify or an Apple Podcast, like you have an intrigue, like you're listening to something for a lengthy period of time. If you're watching this on YouTube, I think our average watch time's 30 to 40 minutes, on an hour and a half podcast. So, I mean, most people aren't watching it all. They're watching first 10 minutes, 5 minutes of it, and then like, nah,
yeah,
I'm done.
Yeah.
Not interested.
Yeah, I don't blame you.
Here, that actually most people spend on average 52 minutes a day on TikTok.
Here you go.
Holy cow.
Yeah.
And I mean, think about that. Because those things are 30 seconds and less, you're watching over 100 TikToks a day.
And those are adults, too. They said kids between the ages of 4 and 15 do 90 minutes.
Wow.
Remind
me to backslap my kids when I see them.
Yeah, that's crazy, man. And that doesn't include like Instagram.
Right.
So it's probably double, triple that.
Cow. And you're right, it is like nothing, it's 90% of it's not like even relatable to me, but like I just watch it and flip to the next and flip to the next and flip to the next.
That's what's weird is like it's stupid stuff. Like it's I can't remember. Well, you know what though?
Like I'll see
I do remember because then I'll tell my wife later, but okay, hey, so it's funny Instagram thing.
Yeah, I'll be like, hey, look at this. And I'll see like whether it's like Barstool Sports something.
And it is funny. It's just entertainment. That's all it is.
Yeah, and again, man, that's where that attention span just continues to decrease in this community to the point where, you and I have had the conversation, and I'm sure people have heard us on talk about it, is that because of the way that media like that is being driven to us, it's an overload on the brain. Like your brain's not meant to have that much shit coming through in a given day. I mean, back 20 years ago when we were just talking about hunting, like I'd have to pick up like my basketball phone to call my girlfriend on, and like I would then go watch the TV and maybe get on AOL Instant Messenger, and that was it. Like those were the devices that I had to like communicate, or I just got in my truck and fucking drove somewhere.
Right. Well, and so I guess like what it seems is like that form of media and stuff is just outpacing like what hunting is.
Mm-hmm. Well, I mean, it's because you can't tell a hunt in 15 seconds.
Well, that and even think about like, dude, the reason that like, those guys that were killing, would even go back here 20, 30 years ago that would kill a 130, a 140, and that consistently every year. There's a lot of work that went into that. That took, they had to, borrow a pole saw from a friend and maybe they had to make their own tree stand. Like there was a lot of effort that went into it. And now it's like, hey, when you went to the bathroom, I ordered 300 batteries and 6 trail cameras and SD cards. They're all going to show up at the farm. I got a box blind come in. It's like that stuff's all at the tips of our fingers.
It's all there.
And you can have a lot of fun with that, and it's cool to like have stuff, but it's like the amount of tools that we have access to kill these deer, as compared to that time, was like worlds apart.
Prime example of that is prior to COVID. If I ordered whatever Energizer lithiums on Amazon, I could order them today, have them tomorrow, be on my farm Saturday. You can't do that anymore because of the way shipping is, and it pisses people off. Pisses me off because they catered me to Prime, which is 1 to 2 days, and now it takes 4 days for me to get something from Prime, and it's like, what the hell? Like it used to be 1 to 2 days. Why can't it still be 1 to 2 days? Mm-hmm. And it's the same thing with a lot of these brands from a direct to consumer standpoint. When Amazon Prime came and started offering free shipping on this stuff, couldn't compete.
Right.
If I'm shipping you a tree stand, it costs me $50. How am I going to charge free shipping on that?
Yeah. Well, and dude, that's why you see the, these brands that you're talking about that will lose their grip are the ones that have like ride or die retail.
Mm-hmm.
Because retail at some point is just obsolete. You can't compete with, hey, I just bought this. Yeah, I just bought it.
Yeah. I mean, there's certain impulse things I think that still make sense from a retail outlet.
Yeah.
But the majority of things, because of the planning and the access we have at our fingertips, are not impulse buys anymore. And yeah, I mean, I think it's, I think brands are feeling that pressure right now.
You now have the ability to impulse buy from wherever you are because of the internet.
Yeah.
Like, I just bought that.
Yeah. I mean, I'll be in my tree stand and be like, damn it, I needed a bow hanger. And I'll order a bow hanger right from the tree stand.
Yeah.
That's just how it is. I think that it's kind of trying to get to the bottom of, how...
Well, we're trying to figure out where this industry's going, I think, right?
Well, yeah.
We're trying to figure out, like, what's next? Where does this lead?
Where is this industry going? And, like, what is the future of us as deer hunters even? Like, because, again, like, I go back to 15, 20 years ago, like, even though I feel like I live and breathe deer hunting, I feel more isolated from other deer hunters than I did 15 and 20 years ago.
For sure.
Like 15, 20 years ago, the only way that we talk bucks is there'd be 6 of us standing together talking about the bucks we saw in a soybean field last night.
Yeah.
Now, I'm just sitting there on social. I'm like, Duncan just posted a big buck. Nope, there's another one. Ben Rising just posted a big buck. Like, I don't have to talk to anybody. They're telling me via social.
Honestly, a lot of our camaraderie, it's you and I and the guys in our dads,
Mm-hmm.
the guys in our camp, and the guys that we're trying to guide on. So we build our own close-knit community.
Yeah, but the outside world, all I have to do is pick this up and be like, yep, look at all these bucks we're seeing in Illinois or Iowa or Ohio right now. Or, yep, dropping bucks in Kentucky right now. And it's like, before, you had to put effort into find that information, to talk to people, to engage with people. Now, we're a society of introverts because we don't have to talk to anybody. We're just like, yeah, Ben Rising did kill a buck yesterday. Cool. I was going to call him, but I don't need to now.
Yeah. Right.
That's it. It's a weird thing because, what I fear is that almost like when we have these private land talks about like how much effect can we have on private lands on a landscape level, is like all of a sudden we start managing and hunting like we're on an island. Like this is me on an island. Like I can go and look and see what anybody's doing online at any given time because they're going to post it, social media. But I'm just gonna treat this as my own little island. Maybe I talk to the neighbors. Maybe I just watch their social and see if they end up posting anything. And it's a weird thing because we start to really isolate ourselves down to where it's like as an industry, as a hunting industry, and as a community, like it almost feels thin. And we talked about this at ATA show last year, and that show used to be banging, man. When we would go to ATA show, it was like this, we had just got out of the season. We were all still amped up. Look at all the new stuff coming up. Look at this industry. And then last year, it's like,
I mean, dude, it was literally like mid-show. We're like, are they still having this thing? Like, is this, is this the show?
Like, this is dead. And so, like, you start to think, and I don't think that the industry is suffering. Like, I don't think, like, financially it's doing any worse. It's just nobody engages with anybody anymore because it's all right here. I don't have to.
Yeah.
It's on my phone. Oh, well, let me see what Muddy's doing. Oh, yep. Cool. There it is. I don't have to go look for it anywhere. I have to go find it anywhere. And I think that leads to, and I don't know what the problem's going to be, but it can't be good. At some point that quietness, that fragmentation across the industry is going to lead to something that's not good. Whether that is the fact that we all start fighting with each other internally because we're in this clique and you're in this clique type of thing, or, frankly, we just don't communicate anymore.
I think people would just remove themselves from the industry. I think people will be like, well, I still love to deer hunt.
Yep.
I have everything I need to do it. I'm just going to do that.
Yeah, and I think the downfall is that as people like us who want to hear cool stories and see how people are being successful, we won't anymore.
Yeah.
It'll just stop. It'll sound like there aren't deer hunters out there because nobody talks to each other.
Right.
Unless they're just posting their big buck kills on this phone.
Yeah.
That'll be it. And I think that's where it starts to get, a little bit, I guess, eye-opening in this place, in that, when we think about where the industry has come, I mean, it wasn't but a handful of years ago that, man, this thing was cranking. Like, I mean, you walked into an ATA show or whatever, and I mean, you just felt the presence of just
big buck classic.
Yeah, everybody just loved deer hunting, and they loved to be there. And yeah, you can blame COVID for some of this, but I mean, it is just flat right now. Just, I mean, people were talking about NRA show in Houston this past week. It was dead.
Really?
Nobody there.
That's probably because it's NRA.
Probably. But that's dead. ATA, dead. What's left? There's not much. Where does the community come back to life out of this thing? And I kind of put that weight on the industry a little bit, because the industry has the ability to bring back that community out of things, not necessarily even in person, but just discussions, just talking, just reinvigorating, and everybody's kind of in their own little wow. Like, I'm just going to worry about this, and I'm just going to worry about this.
Yeah.
And that's it.
Yeah. And I try to look at it like in a mainstream scale too. Like, I mean, it definitely seems like that's just the way that things are now.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think that this is like an industry exclusive problem.
No.
That's what's happening, but I don't know, because we don't go to like a ton of, they have shows and stuff, like
some trade shows,
Eastern Outdoor Sportsman Show, and like there's opportunities to there's memberships that you can be a part of and stuff. And I suppose
Nashville Wild Turkey and stuff.
Yeah, I mean, somebody could call us out for not being as engaged with some of those as we could be or should be, I guess. But
sure. Well, and do it.
I don't know.
Call me out. Like, what do you want me to be part? I mean, I go to NWTF. I'm a member of NWTF. Frankly, I just don't like the turkeys as much as I like deer.
Well, I guess, I don't know. I'm trying to decide if I have a problem with it or not, like with the way the industry's going, because like, yeah, I don't want to.
Yeah.
I'm not in, I don't hunt to make friends. I know there are people that are. There are people that.
The camaraderie crew.
The camaraderie aspect.
Mm-hmm.
That's fine. It's good. I'm in it because I love it. Because I love it. It's just I have a connection to it. But I think like we found through that, you can get some very close friends and close knit group of guys that you hunt with and stuff, and that's more than enough for me.
Mm-hmm.
But and so you know what I mean? Like, I don't know, but I still want to hear about this stuff.
I mean, frankly, there's a bit of solitude in it that I love. That's
well, okay, let's go back, dude, because before hunt shows, like it was just magazines. It was 100%. Only magazines.
Yeah,
that's all there was.
Yep, and just groups of guys talking at the bar or at the football game. Like that. That's what I could vividly remember most Friday nights at a high school football game. Eventually, getting with a group of guys talking about if we were bow hunting the next morning.
Yeah, or at you still go to bow shops and stuff, and like they're out there. So I don't know. Like, it's just I don't think people are any less interested in hunting. In fact, probably just more than ever before. It's just that like the means of content consumption and like the industry as a whole is just kind of like, I don't know, it can't compete with like how we're consuming content these days. Mm-hmm. And so like there's going to have to be some new mode of incorporation.
Well, that's
of that
it. I mean, even if all of us as hunters said, well, we're going to produce more content with social, which I'm not for at all because I don't want to produce as much as we do anyways. You're still going to be drowned out by normal society on those platforms. Yeah. Won't stand out.
Or mindless entertainment. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, dude, you and I love hunting. Mm-hmm. We love hunting content. I don't follow anybody.
Yeah.
Like there's nobody that I'm interested enough to be like, oh, look, raised hunting's doing this or that, or, even some people that do
I'll come across
phenomenal.
It and I'll engage with it when it comes across my stuff, but like I don't search it out.
Yeah. Like even these people that do phenomenal jobs with their content and stuff, like I think like HUNTR's really on top of posting their stuff. Like
and I haven't been on that stuff much at all.
Who else, Nick? There's a couple out there, but I don't know, man. I just can't keep with it.
I mean, like I'll, if I see something from Rising or from Higgins or Sturgis or Winky or something, like I'll engage with it. I'll read it and sometimes comment on it.
Yeah.
But like I don't search it out, and I wish that was all I was seeing, to be honest, because they would clean up my time on, because I'd be like, oh, there's that. And meanwhile, I'm thumbing through whatever 10 minutes of trash.
Yeah.
Mindless content. And then I'm like, oh, there's Higgins. There's Sturgis. So it's interesting. And I guess that kind of goes back to when we had that talk of like, where do you consume content? I know a lot of people said YouTube, which makes sense, but and YouTube's kind of got a little bit better purpose in that I feel like it's more catered to searching, and looking for stuff. Whereas TikTok, Instagram, like you kind of just look at your feed and whatever's in your feed is what you absorb. Mm-hmm. Same with Facebook. Mm-hmm. I mean, you can search out certain people, but I typically stay within the lanes of my feed. Whatever's in my feed is what I absorb and I'm out. That's it. So yeah, I think that will be, and again, and it's no knock to some of these guys, but like these people who are putting a lot of effort into production and stuff, where's it going to go? Eventually you just need to be on YouTube.
Yeah.
And at that point, you're probably overproduced for YouTube. The HUNTR Podcast is brought to you by Hoyt Archery.
Dude, where would we be without our Hoyt bows?
Probably shooting crossbows.
or a Matthews, yeah.
One and the same. Yeah. But in all seriousness, we love being Hoyt guys because you stand out. When you're in this room full of other people that shoot these other types of bows, I feel like the Hoyt guys just stick out.
Dude, it's just a legit bow. I mean, especially that carbon riser, man. I mean, I know that they've got several other aluminum lines as well, but for me, I'm shooting that RX-5 in the carbon model. They've since come out with the RX-7, and I can't tell you how much I love being a Hoyt guy amongst a sea of Matthews guys. So we're out there, I think, proving them wrong, shooting 80 pounds and, killing stuff.
Hey, man, if you want to get serious, get Hoyt.
Dude, do you know, since we had that conversation last week, for some reason I bounced back into, I've been watching a bunch of the Realtree Monster Bucks.
Oh, yeah.
Some freaking great stuff, dude. David Blanton's, top 5 and Waddy's throwback hunts. Yeah.
Tyler called me the other day. I need to call him back.
Oh, yeah.
We're going to get him on, Tyler Jordan.
Cool.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, dude,
Tyler's killed some large whitetail bucks.
Dude, those old monster bucks were great. Primetime bucks, like all of those old school type shows, VHS, DVDs were awesome.
Yeah.
And
that was just to me, like, just remembering about this seems like the climax of like
it was
when big buck killing was the coolest.
Well, and it felt like it was the coolest, and I say this with just like a slight grain of salt. Because not everybody was doing it. Mm-hmm. Like when you saw David Blanton kill a 180 in Iowa, it was like, damn, dude, that's a stud. And I still say that, but I also see a lot of those bucks already every year.
And so maybe
because of this.
Maybe because of that. What we didn't realize at the time is everybody in Iowa kills 180s.
Everybody kills 180s. If you don't kill 180s, they shun you. They kick you out.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, that's probably what it was, is everybody was killing big bucks. It's just, we didn't see it because we were 7 states away.
Those guys are on TV, and that's where you get the content.
And now, it's like, oh, Joe Smith just killed a 185 that's bigger than David Blanton's. He killed a 207, and he doesn't even hunt much.
Puts things in perspective a little bit.
And so it's like, and I'm not saying that those guys are any less talented than they were back then, but it was like, oh, did I just see what they were shooting because I couldn't see what everybody else was shooting? Or was that truly an anomaly at the time?
Go to Iowa. Find out for yourself.
Trying. I got, freaking 2 more years or something? One year?
One more point.
1 point and then a file, so 2 years.
Except for point inflation. Maybe it'll take us 7 years.
I think Biden docked me a point. We're going to take that back. Mm-hmm. We're going to put it towards the Build Better.
Nick voted for him, I'm pretty sure.
Ah, damn it, Nick. I was watching, not to get too political, I was watching something the other day that had him on there. It said something like,
come on, man.
The Second Amendment was like never certified or something. I was like, yeah, I'm pretty sure it's in the Constitution. Like it's
illegitimate.
Yeah. He's like, it never really like was finalized by the congressionals.
That ain't real.
Come on. Anyways, but yeah, I mean, I think that when you start to think about that, it's like, okay, and I'm sure back then people probably weren't killing them as frequently because, I mean, deer hunting and management and thing has elevated and evolved so much in the last 15, 20 years. But, man, obviously we still get worked up when we kill a mature buck. But, like, yeah, man, it takes part of the fun out of it when, I go through my news feed and, 16 people that I just scrolled through in 5 minutes killed a 160, and I'm like,
yeah,
160s, and I'm not saying that's not a great accomplishment because it is, but it takes some of that fun out of the what was so awesome when you would hear local rumors. You're like, yeah, so and so, I heard he killed a big 12 point, and it's like, oh yeah, like how big? Like I don't know, I don't have pictures on it, Now it's like, oh, let me go to social. Yeah, it was a 2-year-old.
Right.
And you're done.
Yeah, it definitely takes a lot of the mystery out
and
of it.
You're out of it. And so it's just, this goes back to like the youth discussions we've had in the past where it's like, let's say you got a great managed property, take a youth out, kills a 170 first buck ever. Like you set a bar super high for that child, right? This kind of goes back to that discussion point where it's like, how far can we continue to progress before we're like at a wall?
Progress.
Well, I mean, again, go any week in November and scroll through your Facebook feed and tell me how many 150 pluses you see.
Well, yeah, man. I mean, I think that's why, like, generally speaking, at this point, I'm, in favor of things that make deer hunting harder.
Yes.
Not easier.
Correct.
Because social media has revealed to us that a lot of people kill a lot of big bucks. And I guess like...
And that's what I'm saying, they're not deserving of it.
Sure. No, it's not. And it's not that, like, I want that to go away either.
Mm-hmm.
I don't want it to continue to get easier, though.
Mm-hmm.
Because... I don't know. There's obviously a concern for, like, the species.
I mean, would you agree that today 140-inch buck isn't that special?
It depends where you're at.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, around here, in the age, I think, is more impressive than the antler score.
Mm-hmm.
Like, if you kill a 4-year-old buck around here, I would say that's fairly impressive.
Yeah,
I'd say maybe...
Same with Wisconsin. We talked to Nick this morning. I think Wisconsin would be the same.
Yeah.
Michigan would probably be the same. New York.
Yeah.
West Virginia.
Yeah. And, regardless of score, certainly the higher scoring ones will score better as 3-year-olds, so they're more likely to get killed younger.
Mm-hmm.
But, yeah, you go to Iowa, any of those Midwestern states, it's not hard to kill a 4-year-old buck. You spend any amount of time there, you'll do it.
Mm-hmm.
Sit in a river bottom in Kansas, you'll kill one.
Well, and that's what's kind of... I wouldn't say like depressing about it, but it definitely takes some of the allure out of like the deer hunting. And it I think I agree with you in terms of the region. Like if I kill a buck on my home farm, that's a 4.5-year-old, that's 140. Like that's awesome. If I did that same thing in Kansas, I'm happy, but it's nothing. Nobody's.
Well, and that's fine. It should be different. Like your goals in Kansas should be different.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, they don't. Your goals could be whatever you want them to be, but like it's statistically harder to kill a mature buck here in Pennsylvania than it is.
Yeah, in Kansas. Yeah, and I think that's where like when you start to tie social media and in this like just whatever desire to share everything, by a lot of people, you get into this kind of funk where it's like, I don't want to say that like I get sick of it, but I'm like, dude, like, okay, cool, we get it. You shot your 5th 160 this year, like, awesome, man. And it's like I don't say that to be like good for them, like that's awesome, but it's also like I don't know, like you start to think about, okay, like have you worked really hard to kill that 160? Because there's a lot of people out there that hunt hard their entire life and will never kill 160.
Well, you know what is I don't think you were talking about Rising there, but
no, I wasn't talking about Rising.
Dude, there are some guys that are just undeniable, and Rising's one of them.
And Rising is one of the guys that I will say that I do try to follow his content because the dude's just damn good.
He's good. And so
one of the best
my next comment here is not at all to take away from any of Ben's accomplishment or anybody that's killed big bucks, but like I don't know if it's social media or just tools like HuntStand or things that just make the world small. All these things that make the world smaller is like we start to realize that like killing a big buck has way more to do with where you're at than
100%
than how good you are of a hunter. That's definitely a part of it. You
need to be a good hunter.
Being a good hunter helps your odds.
Yeah, but it's where you're at.
But there's lots of bad hunters that kill big deer.
I mean, if we lived from October 1st to December 31st in Iowa or Kansas, we would probably kill booner every year.
Yeah, probably.
Feel confident about that.
Probably.
And I know people are going to say, wow, that's cocky. No, I would just,
based
look
on
at the
our
guys
experience.
That are.
I mean, dude, when's the last time Jared Mills had killed booner? Like, I don't.
Yeah.
When he was a kid, probably.
Yeah, great. Our buddy Marcus kills 150 pluses almost every year.
He doesn't even have a bow. Hits him with his truck. You know? Yeah. It just has to do with
you're just in the area
and it's not just where you're at.
Well, you can't kill them if they're not there.
You can't.
I mean, there's a good chance if you took a 10-mile square radius of where we're at, that there's probably not a booner in that 10 miles.
So, you've heard me say that like making deer hunting like a lifestyle is like the fruition of like putting all this time and effort into not just being a better hunter.
Yeah.
Because, I feel like my skills of being able to read sign and stuff is as good as anybody.
We're going to come back to that, but yeah.
I'm confident on that. The hard part is getting to where they're at.
100%.
Spending 6 years to draw it in Iowa, making enough money to buy a lease in Kansas.
Yes.
You know what I mean? That's the hard part.
Otherwise, you're, and I'm not saying like you're left with, but we've got Western Pennsylvania, which there is a biggest, baddest buck in that area, and he may not be a booner.
Mm-hmm.
Like, and that's
or even around here,
that's the pinnacle.
Regardless of where you're at, within every circle, there is a booner in Western Pennsylvania. There's no doubt.
Sure.
It's and so in that regard, it's just more time finding
and then getting access to them. Yeah. I for us, just because I know we spend a lot of time in the woods, I would agree with our skills. I think skills overall are completely a shitstorm right now. I bet most of these guys couldn't track a damn deer if their life depended on them.
I mean, dude, I might catch some flack for this, but like, dude, anybody can go out and shoot a deer with a rifle. Like it's fine if you want to do that. It's legal.
Mm-hmm.
But it doesn't require any hunting skill, frankly.
Gotta be a good shot and be in the right area.
I mean,
those are your two factors, right?
Yeah.
Be a good shot.
Remotely in the right area,
and
within a few hundred yards, and be able to pull the trigger.
Yeah, I would agree. And I mean, there's luck involved with that, which comes in like the right area. Like, deer's not there, you're not going to kill them.
No doubt.
But again, I say that because you may go opening day and not work out, but if you hunted the whole season, chances are you've got a pretty good opportunity.
Yeah, and I guess if I have an opportunity to clarify my statement, it's easy compared to some other illegal types of hunting.
Sure.
even crossbow hunting.
Well,
I
and that's
think
what
rifle hunting there's a huge advantage. Obviously,
there's some guys. I'm gonna butcher what it is, but it's like basically like the Big Bucks Club of like Maine. Have you seen those guys that like hunt the like big woods of Maine, like tracking?
Yeah.
Like, and those guys, most of those guys use rifles. I give them a lot of credit.
Yeah.
Dude, they're tracking big buck, prints in the snow, miles and miles deep into these national forest areas to basically get a peek at them to throw one into them.
Yeah.
Like that's cool.
Yeah.
And that requires a lot of tracking skill.
100%. All of this stuff has nuance. Like even
Sure.
if I would say, to kill a big buck in Iowa is easy. It's obviously not. Guys spend the whole season doing it, but compared to killing a booner in Pennsylvania,
it's easier.
It's way easier.
Yeah,
it's just statistically.
Yeah. You can't argue with the math.
Yeah, so it's the same.
I think one of the things that I've seen a lot is, especially with bow hunters, is people's inability to track wounded deer. For sure.
Okay.
It's a difficult spot, I think, for a lot of people. The moment they get out of their stand, they go over to the arrow, doesn't look like it's a double lung shot, and they can't find any blood, and they're already frazzled. And that's a big issue. I think
happens easily. I've felt,
everybody has, because you come out of a buck fever high, basically.
Well, it's a weird moment,
and most people, unless you know that you put it in the wheelhouse, right? Most people are unsure of where that arrow hit the moment they release it. Though there's plenty of people that will say, "Yeah, put it right behind the shoulder," and it ends up 1.5 feet behind that.
Dude, that moment of impact is
it's a blur, right?
Worth talking about.
Yeah,
it's such a big responsibility. Like just to take a life, and it can be like so good, and that's obviously tied with...
You're at the highest of high right before you're ready to shoot.
Yeah, and even the highest of highs is tied to some... it's not remorse. It's just respect, like a sadness for the life of the animal being taken, and even though it's a weird combination of feelings there, but it's either that or like the flip side is almost like guilt tied with uncertainty. Like I wonder what percentage of hunters have shot a deer and immediately been like, I'm not telling anybody about that.
I bet a lot.
They go over, look for an arrow. They know that deer's probably going to die somewhere.
But it's going to be a tough find. Yeah, a lot. I would say a vast majority of people have experienced. I know. I'm not afraid to say that I've probably experienced it before. And at least in conscience gave it my best ability to try to find that deer.
100%. I've told a story about it on this podcast about the one that Corey shot, and maybe out of context it sounds worse than it was, but it wasn't the right thing to do. Obviously, in hindsight, pulled an arrow out, stuck it in there, so my dad would say, "Hey, we can be done blood trail," because I was a kid. I didn't want to blood trail anymore.
Wherever right here, wide boy.
Yeah.
Upon release, I thought I buried it in his wheelhouse. That deer was 30 yards and piled up, and I ended up, putting it in his shoulder, and I spent the better part of 6 hours trying to find that deer, and just didn't work.
And it's easy on a deer like this to do the right thing, because it's like he's worth it.
Yeah.
But there's been other guys that have shot not the biggest deer in the woods, and they're like, I don't know, maybe I'll just sit and see if another one comes, and
it
happens a lot, man.
And that's the animal respect side too.
Good people that they're frazzled by the moment, or they don't.
Okay, so let's just take that moment for why don't they go and look for it? Why do they say I don't want to tell anybody? Because they're afraid of being made fun of, feeling like a failure.
Maybe, yeah. Either that.
It's this thing.
Maybe they don't want to put in the work. They're
I have a pet peeve about that. I understand the, because we've talked about that on the podcast to where, and I think I'm getting over it now, but I've felt the pressure to not shoot certain bucks because I'm going to be judged just because of where we work and what we do. But so I get that. In terms of not putting in the work, I have no tolerance for that. You're out there, you owe that animal.
Yeah, or just they doubt that they can recover the animal type of a deal. Yeah, so there's multitude of reasons.
A lot of guys. I mean, you and I know people for sure that have done that, and then I've gone back out and ended up tracking a deer for a mile.
Mm-hmm.
And it was...
And I found them.
Yeah. And then it's like, dude, there's blood right here. And, oh, I didn't even see it. It's like
100%. I've found guys deer and they're back out hunting, and I'm like, hey, I found your deer over here.
Yeah.
Come get it. Tag it.
Yeah. And it's like, did you look over here? Yeah. There's a pile of blood right here. Oh, I didn't see it.
It's a weird moment, because if you don't see that deer go down immediately, even, experienced hunters, you start to doubt, like if maybe I didn't make that good of a shot, or maybe the fact of the matter 100%. Is, you put an arrow in that cavity, that deer's going to die at some point.
I mean, I've put it exactly where that deer, I mean, I knew I buried it in them, and just, waiting an hour or so for you guys to get there, by the end of it, I was just like, man, did I really hit him as good as I think I did? Like, is he going to be? Because it's just pitch black. You're just like, I don't know,
That's fun. I remember recovering that.
And it's a great feeling when you're like, blood, 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 boom, there he is.
Yeah.
Or you see him go down, whatever.
Yeah.
Like those are great feelings. The feeling of him going out of sight is a sickening feeling, even if you think you made a great shot, because it now becomes, I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know. I'm not sure that he went down. I mean, I crushed him, but, I don't know. Or you see him bed down, but his head's still up. Plenty of bow hunters experience that. And it's like, what the hell? Like, he should be dead by now.
Mm-hmm.
These deer are tough.
They are tough. I don't know if it comes like with experience or understanding of the animal, just to know if it's a lethal hit or not. And the only way to find that out, unfortunately, is to make mistakes. I mean, we've all lost deer. I lost the first few I shot at, probably.
Ditto.
Just because I didn't know exactly where I hit him, or I didn't read his reaction correctly, and so it's that's part of bow hunting. You hear that all the time.
Well, and there's other. I mean, I've definitely had this. In fact, I had it not too long ago where I've shot deer, good shots, and then I just can't find them, and then I end up tripping a bunch of bones or something in the springtime, and it's like, what the hell?
That's bow hunting. At some point,
couldn't find them. There's no blood. I couldn't find anything.
At some point, you do everything you can. Whatever you feel is an adequate effort, and a bow hunter will show his true colors when it's day 6 of gridding, and it's as opposed to somebody that's out there for 2 hours, kind of lost blood.
Get back in the stand. Yeah, and that's a big thing. I mean, that's why most of your outfitters have draw blood and you're done, type of thing.
Which is a good rule, unless that it's a flesh wound, and usually you can tell. Yeah,
I mean. I think that it kind of goes back to like our QA discussion a little bit, but and I like it to a point, but there is just so much hunting content out there, just so much content. I mean that it's the benefit and the disadvantage of a YouTube, right? I mean, go in and just search keywords deer hunting and just see how many pages and pages and pages and pages and pages of content are out there. I think that there's some really good representations of what you should do. I think there's also some pretty piss poor ones on there. And, and again, it's all based on where you're at. Like I got into a kick there probably last year where I was watching a lot of, dog hunting for deer down in South Carolina.
Oh, really?
And it was just like all POV stuff, shooting buckshot at these deer when they come blowing out of the swamps. And I've never done it, and I don't know anything about it. But, like, I'm just like, these guys, it was their tradition. Like, there were 15 guys and their dogs, and they just went out. And it's like, okay. Like, I would hate for that to be my property, but I get it. Like, that's how you guys hunt here, and it's kind of a cool tradition. But then at the same part, like, you get a lot of people that are just commenting and saying, like, this is crazy. Like, this should be banned, da-da-da. And they're hunters. They're not non-hunters. They're hunters saying, like, hunting with dogs should be banned for these reasons, X, Y, Z. I get it. And this is where the state comes back in and says, listen, if it's illegal, they can do it. But, like, that's a heritage tradition for those people in a lot of the South. I mean, I get where it maybe doesn't meet what you and I think of deer hunting, but, like, who's to say they should take it away down there? Because society's evolving, because deer hunting's evolving, because content producers or brands tell us that that's not how it should be.
Right.
Like, I don't know. I'm sure those guys are sitting in blue jeans and flannels shooting buckshot out of a shotgun. That's nothing checking the boxes to the brand loyal people from a hunting side.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't know, man. I don't, I wish everybody could hunt the way they want to hunt.
The HUNTR Podcast is brought to you by Stealth Cam.
Dude, where would we be without our cell cams?
I would definitely be divorced at this point.
Yeah, I hear that.
I mean, the fact is I spent more time checking cameras than I actually did hunting prior to cell cameras. Now, at least, my wife can enjoy me being in the comfort of my own home, buried in my phone, checking those pictures.
Yeah, 100%. And, dude, when it comes to trail cameras and definitely cell cameras, reliability is, I think, the number one thing that we're looking for. Stealth Cam just has a long reputation of reliable cameras, and ultimately that is the most important thing to us. They have to work.
In terms of reliability, there's not a better camera on the market than Stealth Cam, whether you're talking about the Fusion X, the Reactor, or the DS4K Transmit. And most of them are under $200.
Stealthcam.com. Check them out.
For everyone listening, use the code HUNTR20 at checkout and receive 20% off any of your Stealth Cam products. Guns was the other thing I was thinking about when we were talking about brand loyalty, when we were talking about Chevy and Ford.
Yeah.
Guns are a big one. Like, there are Winchester guys, there are Remington guys. From a hunting rifle standpoint, there also is from a pistol. There's SIG guys, there's, Smith & Wesson guys. But from a hunting rifles perspective, there was always like Winchester guys, Remington guys, Marlin guys, Ruger guys. Like,
I shot my first year with a Marlin 30-30.
Ditto. Yeah, that was kind of like the intro PA gun. I'm sure a lot of people, if they're from Pennsylvania or like us, 30-30 was your entry-level gun.
Yep.
But, those guys were very loyal. Like, I know certain guys who, they wouldn't pick up a Winchester. They would only shoot Remingtons. That's what they went with. That's what they shot. That's what kind of ammo they used. Other people just use Winchesters. Just how it was. And I think that those brands initially did kind of what a Ford and Chevy did. They were the initial impacts on those guys. Like, if you shot a Remington 30-06 pump, I think it was the Remington 760. Like, that was a deer gun for Pennsylvania, just like the Marlin 30-30 was. And then you had things like the Winchester, like 243s and 270s, which were more of, I thought, like your Midwest and Western type guns. But you had that kind of spectrum of people that used different types. I think that those guys have already lost their grip. I would say right now most guys are looking more at the caliber than they are the brand of gun. I mean, they still want quality, but when you look at equality across the board, I mean, that's why some of these precision rifle companies are now in the game. Is they're not bulk makers, but they're making high quality precision rounds for the popular calibers.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's comparable to like the camo industry, in that like a higher quality, more dialed.
Sitka Kuya,
right,
was able to break a giant, wall of mossy oak and Realtree.
Right. Yeah, because who's going to go to wherever you go anymore to, hey, that rifle on the wall there looks pretty good. They're going to go to a web page and design it, start to finish.
And they're going to pay for it.
And you're going to pay for it, and they're willing to pay for it.
But it's going to be a gun that
that's the thing, dude. We're all willing. And I mean, hunters are willing to pay for quality products. Like, we're not a poor subclass of people. Like, it's just
it's the one thing we probably spend on as a hobby.
Yeah, it's about all I spend money on, frankly.
My wife too.
Well, yeah,
sometimes
obviously she makes all.
Obviously, it's a really. I guess that's where I'd like to hear some comments from people is like, just talk about like your brand affinity. Like, think about it first before you just comment and say, I'm a Sitka, Matthews, think about it. What, like, have you always been, because there are guys that I've met, that Tony Taza, I know he's been a Hoyt shooter for 27 years, always been a Hoyt guy. I'm sure there's plenty of people like
Bill
that.
Winke, been shooting Hoyt since 1982.
Yeah, before Hoyt was alive. But so there are guys that exist like that out there, and Bill's been a Realtree guy for as long as I can remember. But there are other aspects of it that, are probably relatively new, and that's fine. I mean, there's things evolving and you should grasp onto them. Part of it would be why, like I no knock to a lot of, but like, if I see somebody wearing, let's just say Kuyu, in a whitetail stand, so why do you wear Kuyu? Just curious. I get it. It's good because it's good clothing. You like it, lightweight, athletic cut. I mean, there's benefits to it, but I'd be same with Sitka. Why do you wear that in the stand? To me, I want apparel that's athletic cut, feels good, and I can layer.
Ultimately, I think, or I would hope that hunters evolve into quality over like brand loyalty. Mm-hmm. I know that I have for sure. Like if at some point I felt like, I don't know, maybe it was like Maxima blues. Like everybody shot those, the Carbon Express.
Carbon Express.
It's like, I could ride on a Carbon Express. Yep. That was like the arrow, and it was cool until I realized
it's not built right.
Yeah, it's not built for the performance that I want.
Mm-hmm.
Same with like camo, dude. Like ultimately, like Mossy Oak was fine, but I was just looking for a better quality piece of apparel.
Yeah, I mean, I was wearing a long sleeve Realtree T-shirt that it rained and I got soaking wet.
Yeah,
or it was cold and I was wearing 16 pairs of long johns.
Yeah, so I mean, ultimately, people should. It's fine if you want to buy something. If you want to support a brand, especially if it's a small company or something, like by all means, I'm not going to tell you what to buy, but like, you should want to. Well, I don't know. I know that I personally want to use the best equipment that I can buy.
And see, I would agree with that, but I think a lot of people do it so they can be part of something.
You do it because you love it.
Mm-mm. They do it because they want to be part of it. They want to be part of this group.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, and I don't know.
I mean, think of the number of brand ambassadors that have come on scene in the last 3 to 5 years. Like, it's like, who the hell are these people? It's like, oh, they'll just do whatever you want for free camo.
Is there? I haven't seen them.
Oh, it's everywhere. I mean, you don't see them because nobody talks about them. But they're basically like, you come to me and you say, yeah, like, we've got this little show. We produce a lot of content. We do this. And it's like, cool. So if I gave you guys some clothes, like, that'd be great. You sponsor us. And then boom, you're out the door. Now you're sponsored. You're out there. You're wearing your click of whatever it is. Mm. It's huge. And I think it's made it more difficult for the guys who are actually trying to make this as a business succeed because there's all these people who are just doing it.
Yeah.
For fun.
Well, where does it leave us?
I don't know.
For today.
I think
I'm optimistic about, hunters. The industry is a different question.
It's one and the same right now to me. I mean, there's so much effect on hunters from the industry that there will always be
less and less, though. I think
there'll be individual thinkers. I mean, I think a lot of these people who are very
because what happens? Let's say the industry goes away, fades. You think most people just stop hunting?
I think conservation's in trouble if that's the case because money will go away. State licensing will go away. Like things will go up. I mean, no, and I don't think the industry is and ever go away. Like it's part of the things we need as equipment to go in. It's just I think that people, even the people who are very serious about hunting, probably the people who are the most serious about hunting.
I've considered it. I'm like, should I buy just a couple bows, like a bunch of arrows, like in case like these companies just go away?
Yeah. I mean, I've done it before, especially when...
dude, let's say they make hunting illegal. Like, you think I'm going to stop hunting?
Yeah, I'm not going to stop hunting. I mean, I've done it before on products that I really like that I know that brand's going to change out in the future. I've hoarded product because I'm like, I don't want to change.
Remember for that S4 gear bino harness? Mm-hmm. Yeah, they stopped making them. Mm-hmm. And I wish I would have bought like 3 or 4. I have a great bino harness now.
We've done it with Victory arrows. Yep. We just keep... Because I don't want them to change. Yeah. Or change something that makes it different.
Yeah.
I bought it with stealth cams as well. I just bought a shitload of Fusion X's because I didn't want them to go to something else, and my Fusion X's work good. I think that where my concern is it seems like some of the most influential hunters within a geographic group area are already associated with a brand because they live hunting and they breathe hunting, much like we do, that they already associate themselves with a brand. I bet a lot of people listen to this associate themselves with a brand. Mm-hmm. And it's not a bad thing. It's just why? Why do you associate yourself with a brand? Maybe you just believe in the product, and it's great, and it's been awesome for you.
I mean, not to drag us on anymore, but like we've talked about it. Like, we didn't like Matthew's approach to marketing.
Correct.
Essentially, and the people that we saw get involved, not that there's not good people with Matthews, obviously.
Yeah.
We talked to one this morning, and has very little indication ultimately of who you are as a person, but it's fun. It's fun.
Well, I didn't think that their brand voice talked to the serious bow hunter.
Exactly.
So for a whitetail side.
So we clung to, and ultimately, I mean, dude, if Matthews made a better bow, I'd be shooting Matthews.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I mean,
I
they
really
make good bows. I mean, a lot of people love their bows the way they set up.
No doubt. Obviously, they're a top-selling bow brand.
Well, and it's interesting because I think we did the weight test, right? And it was like our Hoyts are the same weight as theirs, but for some reason that feels heavy to me. I don't know.
Mm-hmm.
Balance.
Yeah. Well, there's lots of things that I prefer about my Hoyt than I do. The cam size is a big one.
Yeah, they're giant cams on those Matthews.
Yeah, the speed. I like the carbon riser, and I like their marketing voice too, and I like the people.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and again, that's not to say anything bad about them, just like it would be with Camo or anyone else. It's just, maybe that's why we all associate ourselves with a brand. And that's good. That's healthy. I mean, because you're getting behind the brand you believe in. I think we just see in the industry a lot of people getting behind brands for the sake of getting behind a brand, or it's because that's the only brand that will give them free shit.
Yeah.
And that's not healthy.
Yeah.
That's where all of a sudden you see this kickback. We talked about this in a couple podcasts ago. Is that people will say, yep, this is the best bow in the market. We've been shooting it for 20 years, da-da-da-da-da. Then the next year they're with a new company, and you're like, what the hell? What do you mean? I thought this was you shot that bow for 20 years. Like, what do you mean you're with it? It's not because they believe in it. It's because they paid the money.
Yeah. Yeah, and, I have a hard time blaming people for that as much as I blame
because it's a business.
Industry, right?
It's a business.
Yeah.
Yeah. And that's a hard pill for I think more people are becoming awake to that in the industry or as a community to start to see that and be like, wait a minute, those guys told me last year this was the best camera on the market. Now they're selling this camera. Like, why? Because they paid more.
Yeah. Well, and ultimately that's got to be one of the biggest downfalls of the industry.
It's one of the and
because at some point you're like,
to their fault. Those TV guys have to make money in order to be on the damn channel,
right? That's why I can't blame them.
Because they have to pay.
Yeah,
it's a serious issue. I think that is probably one of the biggest issues in the market is like people that I want to listen to as influencers and believe tell me one thing and 365 days later tell me that this brand's the better one because it's a money game.
Yeah.
And can you blame their loyalty? Probably not, because it's a business for them.
Yeah, you gotta make money. I don't know.
Crazy, man. I don't know.
I like talking about it though.
Yeah, I mean, it's the stuff that maybe it's you get a lot of kickback on it because
dude, the more we circle it, like we're
there.
Something's gonna evolve out of this, and we'd like to be a part of it.
Yeah, I just I flash back to some of those things, and I just I miss those days of like, man, the industry was just thriving. Yeah. And again, I don't think that it's not thriving right now. It's just nobody sees it because it's just fragmented and everywhere. I couldn't tell you. Like somebody asked me the other day, and they said, how many trail cameras do you think we sell in the United States in a year? 12, 13, 14 years ago, it was like 800,000 total. Now it's probably 3-4 million. I don't know. No idea. And you see that, and that means the industry is thriving and growing. But like it feels worse than it was 10 years ago.
Yeah. I think it has a lot to do with that, the content curation, like the single platform, like the uniting around a single, like we can all relate to that.
Yeah, there's your homework. It's not there. You may think it's YouTube. It's not. It's definitely not the social media platforms because you're going to get swamped with a bunch of other shit before you see hunting content.
Well, and dude, it may take 10 or 15 years, but like YouTube will do away with hunting content altogether.
Agree.
At some point.
I bet it's sooner than that.
Maybe.
Just doesn't fit their model.
Yeah.
And it's a business.
Yep.
And the vast majority of people on YouTube watching YouTube do not like what we do.
Yeah.
Yeah. And when that happens, if there is not another backup already thriving, not just in place, but thriving, then we'll get worried. Because then it's like, what's anybody doing?
Right. Yeah. And I mean, dude, that's where I see the extreme relevancy of people who are like, hunters have to stick together and this, and yeah, you know, I understand like there's a serious threat to like our way of life, you know, like
and what does that mean though? Like stick together, like how?
Silencing, removal of hunting from any and all content platforms.
Yeah, but we're so divided right now already. What are we gonna do?
What do you mean?
I think the hunting community already is just fragmented. That what are you gonna do? Gonna throw a fit on YouTube?
Well, yeah, no, it's already struggling, and whatever's left now that, you know, these things we're saying we're clinging to, like, could be gone.
Mm-hmm.
And so at that point, it's like there literally is nothing except, you know, personal connections.
Which is why that, I think, is the point. The personal connection aspect has dropped off the face of the earth, and when this other stuff falls off, there'll be nothing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So build personal connections.
Comment. Yeah, I mean, it is. It's, I don't know. Like, it's not that I don't like the social media aspect and stuff of this, but, like, man, it just takes such a... It's cool to see people and chat people, and, like, you probably wouldn't have known they did this or shot this or whatever. Yeah, at the same time, it's like, man, it's in such a bubble. You know? We live in a bubble of typing and phone and introvert and never having to have a conversation with people. And I think that will dramatically hurt the industry. Because hunting is a sport where it's interaction, it's seeing things, it's seeing people. You know, and it just isn't there. I mean, hell, how many people have bitched, including ourselves, that just say, yeah, I saw 2 guys on public land when I was out there. And it was like, that was a problem. And I think it's because we've become isolated. Growing up, dude, I would see 10 guys in the woods in some places. And I'm just like, just what it is.
Yeah.
Now we're so isolated. We see 2 guys and it's like, what the hell, man?
Mm-hmm.
You know, I mean, it's like, it's not that much different than it was.
Well,
we just
I think that has
different.
more to do with understanding of like how to kill a big buck.
Mm-hmm.
They want to be where people aren't.
Sure. And that's where
I don't think we knew that. Yeah. When we were younger.
No.
We were just like, oh, yeah, there's a guy.
I just went kill a deer. Yeah, if I saw guys when I was rifle hunting younger, it was a good sign because they were trying to move deer.
Well, yeah, our game commission guy still thinks that.
Opportunity. All right. Well, yeah, I don't know. I don't have a good answer for it. We're dancing around this thing, and I'd like to just hear people's thoughts on it. You know,
we don't plan for these podcasts, by the way. It's just kind of where our heads are at.
Yeah, and it's it's one of those things that we continue to come and circle around, and maybe it's because some of it is that we've been around the industry when it was like growing to this peak, and now we just feel like fragmented, like I've disconnected. And I work in it every freaking day, and I still feel like disconnected from like what's going on out there, you know. And this is not helping. Like, I don't want to have to sift through here and try to find your story on like what brand you're affiliated with. That's not what I want.
I may challenge myself to like one day this year, maybe leave my phone at home when I go hunting.
Be good.
That'd be crazy, wouldn't it?
Yeah. Again, like think about how many hunts growing up. Like I didn't have a phone. Just sat in the stand.
I know.
My dad used
Isn't
to
it
play
funny how
video poker.
Like when I say that, you think like, what if I get hurt? What if you gotta call
Well, dude,
somebody? What if I kill one?
Yeah, as soon as I leave the house, if I don't have my phone, it's like panic mode. I'm like, shit, forgot my phone.
Yeah, but back in the day, dude, that's what happened. You went
just
into the woods.
You just left. Yeah, with no
You
phone.
might call somebody before you left the house on your landline to say, hey, I'll be here, and if I don't come back at dark, come find me.
But most of the time, no. You just went. Yeah, there's a reliance on these things that has gotten to a bad point, I think.
Yeah.
That you can't leave the house without it. So,
all
anyways, that's it. Episode 77, Hunter in the books.
All right.
Carry the 123 away from 100, right?
Getting there.
Yeah, slowly but surely. We'll be there before the end of the year.
We'll see you there. Later.
Later.
Take me